Hey, bring it in, everybody. Rex Castillo. Once again, it's another Wednesday, so that means we've got to hang out with our good buddy Mike G from the War Rapport. I appreciate you stopping by. It's War Rapport Wednesday. Mike, we got to start on the basketball court. It just seemed like it was inevitable at this point. But officially, Auburn men's basketball, #1 in the AP poll. Mike, this almost seemed impossible to reach 10 years ago. That Auburn, anywhere near the top 10, would have been a nice surprise. #1, unbelievable. But here we are. Bruce Pearl has built a culture to where this is almost expected. I know it's only the second time in school history that this happened, but Auburn belonging in that upper echelon of college basketball is expected at this point. What does this say about the culture that Bruce Pearl has built?
It says that Auburn is a contender and will be a contender for years to come. Now, that first time in school history was just a couple years ago with Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler. We talked about that on our show. My good friend Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered, they put out their own SEC power rankings. And when you look at the conference this year, SEC is a gauntlet, Rex.
It really is.
It is an absolute gauntlet. So looking at the top four in their power rankings, Auburn 1, Bama 2, Florida 3, who made the SEC tournament title game last year, and then Tennessee at 4. And then beyond that, Kentucky is still an AP top 10 team. It's crazy what we're looking at here in the SEC. So, look, Bruce Pearl has built his best squad. We say this week after week,
right,
but this is his most senior squad. And they had to get through that game against South Carolina this weekend without Johni Broome for most of it. But let's be clear, Johni was only 3 of 11 on the day.
Wasn't a very Johni Broome performance.
Yeah, and so I felt like, and I felt like, they're good enough to win. They're good enough to win without Johni. Now, are they the best team in America without him? Obviously not. You're not the best team without the best player in America. But are they good enough to survive this next stretch of 5 games, which is pretty brutal?
Right.
You've got now top 25 Georgia. Mississippi State is, as we're filming this, is tonight. They've got Tennessee coming into Neville here next Saturday. It is going to be a really, really tough stretch where they're going to be tested. Johni projects to be out for at least a couple games.
Wow.
So it's time for guys to step up. Miles Kelly said at the beginning of the season, he said, you never know which guy is going to be the guy that goes off for 25 or 30 on this team. And certainly there's going to be some opportunities for somebody to step up and fill that hole that Johni Broome is going to leave for just a couple games.
And I think you transition perfectly to that. One thing is, Bruce Pearl said, yes, it's great to be #1, but we're not #1. We're not the best team because we're not at full strength, as you just mentioned. Miles Kelly being a guy who said, like, you don't know who's going to go off for 20 or 30 points. But, Mike, for people who may be just tuning into this team, because, again, they are the #1 team. For those of you who haven't been watching Auburn, first of all, wrong on you. Watch this team. This is an incredible team to watch.
Box office.
Right, I'm just saying. And then at the same time, though, who can we expect to step up? Is it the Tahad Pettifers? Is it Miles Kelly? Who do you think could be the guy?
I love this question. We talked about this on our show. And I think the 2 guys to watch are Chaney Johnson and Chad Baker-Mazara. Chad does a lot of things that it's hard to quantify with stats, but he is consistently the energy, the glue that this team needs. He can do it all. He can score inside out. He can rebound. He plays defense at a high level, and he's matured as a player. So he's reining in his emotions, and he's harnessing that, I think, in a very good way. But then there's Chaney Johnson, who quietly has a very, very good all-around game. This is a guy who transferred from Alabama Huntsville. One of those pieces that Bruce Pearl developed in his program from a lower tier program, and is now a pillar. He's one of his tent poles on a senior-laden team. Chaney Johnson, I think, has the ability to give you 10 to 15 a night if, when he's on. He can shoot the 3. He's got a good low post game. He can rebound, and oh my goodness, can he defend. The chase down block has become his signature. I don't think anybody has more dunks on this team than Chaney Johnson right now. So those are the 2 guys I think that you got to look at over this next stretch. If they can step up, Auburn's still going to be really hard to beat.
And when Chaney attacks the rim, it is angry. Like, he is an angry man. So good luck if you want to jump up with him. But
R.I.P. rim.
Right, at this point, you're going to end up on a poster. Good luck to you. Now, with Johni, we saw how good he is. He's really matured into the superstar player. Shoulder injury earlier on, ankle injury now. I know this isn't fair, but is the injury bug something we're going to have to worry about later on in the season?
Look, it always is. You think about that Final Four run. If Chuma Okeke never gets hurt, is Auburn a national title winner in 2019?
Because that Virginia team, he did so much for that team.
Yeah.
So you're right. This is kind of similar to that Okeke situation.
But you got to deal with injuries. Yeah. And I think this is what this team was built for. It was built to withstand that. Again, he's having a historic season. And if you believe the reports, he got a pretty penny to return to Auburn this season. However, you don't pay him that money unless his value and impact to the team is what we're talking about right now. So are you better without him? Absolutely not. But can you win without him? That's where high-level coaching comes in, and this is where you lean on your seniors. And Auburn has the outside shooting, because where you miss Johni Broome, we talked about Chaney, we talked about Chad Baker. Now you have your young 5-star freshman in Tahad Pettiford, and he's shown already in the non-conference that he has the ability to step up and hit big shot after big shot in critical situations. So I think that they have the ability to be just fine. Is it going to be tough? Sure. South Carolina, a lot of people looked at that and said, oh, you almost lost to South Carolina. Look, the SEC is tough this year.
Yeah.
And to win championships, you're going to have tough road tests week in and week out in conference. You got to win games like that. I think that win was as good a win as any you'll see on Auburn's schedule this year.
And speaking of that schedule, as you mentioned earlier, a gauntlet coming up. Mississippi State, again, as of recording tonight, not a team you can sneeze at, but again, a game that got way more interesting because of the way they're playing. At Athens against the number 23 Georgia Bulldogs, who already took down Kentucky. They're stepping up in big ways, because even when Auburn took on Georgia in basketball, even with Ant-Man over there, it always seemed like a one-sided fight, and it was clearly Auburn by 20, it seemed like. What do you expect is going to go down in Athens?
I think it's going to be, no pun intended, a dogfight.
There you go.
And look, if you're Auburn, you just got to find a way to win this game. If they lose it, it's not going to be the end of the world. That number one perch gives teams a little bit of extra juice. Yeah, we asked this question on our show this morning with my guy Chris. It was, how long does Auburn stay on that number one perch? Have they done enough in the non-conference, which I certainly think they have, 6-1 in quad one games before conference play, to stay up on that perch with a loss? Well, they've earned this, and it just has felt like in the past, climbing to that number one has been so difficult. They got to do a little bit more than your Kentuckys and your Dukes to prove that they belong up there. But certainly the unprecedented nature of this non-conference schedule and how they navigated it says that they belong up there even with a loss. So you just got to win more than you lose over this stretch, I think. But they're going to lose some games this year. Sure. There are going to be a couple of L's on that schedule. They're not going to win every single one. But can they win the right ones? And how do they look in the losses, right? I think when they do lose without Johni, how do they look? And that's what everybody's going to be watching.
And I think it'll be a really interesting matchup. You called them box office thing. That's a perfect way to describe this team. We'll definitely be watching. Another team we can't forget about, it's been a tough stretch for the Auburn women's basketball team. Still looking for their very first conference win. It seems like not all the pieces are there, but not everything's clicking just yet. They have a great opportunity. Texas comes to the Plains this week. A little bit of history with one of their players as well. So talk to us about the storyline. What's going on between the Longhorns and the Tigers?
Potential revenge game for Deanna Gaston. She transferred to Auburn from Texas. Look, they're a great squad, and they're loaded with talent over there. Johnny Harris has, again, this to me, what we're seeing this year is the difference between having the resources year in and year out and having to do what she's had to do year in and year out, which is piecemeal and try to get girls here. When Talia Scott got injured early in the season against Oregon, it did derail a lot of what their offensive plan was for this season. And when you look at how many games they lost within like 4 points, man, you cannot sell to any educated onlooker that her presence wouldn't have made a difference in those games. So if you're Johnny Harris, you've got to find a good secondary and a third scorer for this team. They may have some surprises for Texas, so we'll see what she puts on the court. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. This is going to be another prove-it kind of game to test your mettle and see where you're at as a squad. We know they're going to play good defense. Coach after coach tells us when you play a Johnny Harris squad, they're going to give you hell on defense for 40 minutes. But can they score enough to win games, and can they score in critical moments? We saw Marshawn Bostic step up in their last game and get some big buckets, but she's not a great mid-range, or she's not an outside shooter. So you've got to find those shots from the outside. That's where you look at Audia Young. When she gets on the court, she's got to give you something offensively. You can't play her and not get anything from her offensively. And then you need the other girls to step up as well, too. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think I'm looking for a competitive game here. It's going to be a tough task. If you're asking me who wins, I'm going to say Texas right now. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Johnny Harris pull a rabbit out of her hat.
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to ask, too. Is the best basketball ahead for this Auburn women's basketball team?
Yes, absolutely. Now, we're getting to that point, I think, with Talia Scott, where you have to ask the question, does redshirting make more sense than bringing her back this season? And if she doesn't come back in the next 10 days, I would say a redshirt is more than likely. So where do you project? Do you have a chance? You got to remember, last year, it was only over the back half of that 16-game SEC schedule that Auburn made a run to make the conference tournament. Nobody had them in halfway through their SEC schedule. They're behind schedule by 1 game, so
pretty right at that point now. Things can still turn around. And
absolutely.
Who knows? Look, there's doubt of John here if you want to. It's on you. Before we go though, Cam Newton's an athlete, but he's completing some of the most ridiculous side missions in history, which is absolutely outstanding. He's part of this incredible game show where they are special forces. They are going through some extreme military-style challenges. Jump from a speedboat to a helicopter successfully. Just overall, your thoughts. We knew that Cam was a beast on the football field, but like that, what was your reaction?
Do you remember the stories of Tiger Woods doing these kind of training with like Marines? And this is what that's
and like
reminded me of.
Squatting like 500 pounds or something crazy like that.
And so we're clear, Cam Newton is way more of an athlete than Tiger Woods, but him pressing himself up on a moving helicopter, the upper body strength that it takes to do that, this is why I think that he's one of the greatest to ever do it. The question was asked, about the retiring of the number,
right.
And I think the things that he can do are something that you have to celebrate and that we will celebrate in Auburn history until the end of time. So good to see him still out there kind of living his best life. I don't think any of us imagined that it would be jumping on moving helicopters from boats, but that was fun to watch.
Deuce, if you want the number, go ahead and just try and do that.
Yeah. I'd say that. If he can jump off a boat to a helicopter and press himself up, give him the number 2.
Fine, you get number 2. Go for it. Before we go, though, Mike, it's been a lot of fun. But where can people find you and the War Rapport?
On Twitter, at Mike Gittens. Also follow us at the War Rapport on every social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. Also go follow me on YouTube at Locked On UCF. We're doing some great things over there as well too. I got my hands on a lot of sports projects this calendar year, but we're looking forward to the growth, and we appreciate everybody's support.
And guys, he has a battery in his back. He does incredible work. That'll do it for another War Rapport Wednesday. For Mike G, I'm Rex. We'll see you guys next week.